Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Relationship Atlas podcast. Today, in an effort to help us build safe, secure, stable relationships, I want to talk about a form of behavior that often shows up in relationships called withdrawing. Based on my research and what I find in my clients, is that the behavioral response of withdrawing is misunderstood. And so I'd like to create some awareness for us on what happens when somebody withdraws, how to better understand our partner through their withdrawal, and how to support each other in healing what is alive for us when we do, in fact, withdraw. Before we do so, if you are new to this podcast, or if you are listening for the millionth time, or I guess the 19th time we are now, I encourage you please to give us this rating, subscribe, share. It really helps us reach a wider audience and support more people in building safe, secure relationships. Without further ado, let's get into the conversation. So, withdrawal is a conversation we know well. We know when we've decided to just completely detach ourselves from either reality or from the conversation or from our partner. And so withdrawing can look like shutting down. Withdrawing can look like being really quiet and sullen. Withdrawing can look like ignoring. Withdrawing can look like a lot of different things. But what we're basically noticing is that this person is not with me or not alive here with me in this conversation. It's not present. And so what usually tends to be the case is we think, well, that person doesn't want to be close to me, or that person is ignoring me or leaving me or doesn't want to be here in this space. We tend to take their withdrawal personally. And so, what I'm hoping to provide you with is a bit more of a clear reality on what's alive in that person. So, I'm going to refer to the attachment styles in this conversation to better help us relate to this behavior of withdrawing. So let's start with the anxious attachment. Now, anxious attachment is an insecure form of attachment style, and it is the goal of ours to move from the insecure to secure, or the anxious to secure. So when an anxiously attached person withdraws from their partner or withdraws from the present moment, that person is not actually looking to distance themselves. What they're looking for in most scenarios is to hopefully activate their partner to come closer and create connection. So they actually want closeness, even though their behavior seems like they want distance, they want space. There's a higher likelihood that they actually want you to notice the fact that they are distant or withdrawing so that you come closer. So you check in, you say, is everything okay? How are you? Is anything going on? Even if they don't respond well to your questioning, they're just happy that you have chosen to give connection and closeness to them. And it reinforces that they are not going to be abandoned or left behind. Now, this can show up in many different times for somebody who is leaning towards the anxious attachment system. It's not always alive for them. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with the relationship or that you are fighting. A lot of it actually just simply has to do with their system feeling unsafe and needing to protest this way in order to get what they need. So again, it's not actually a form of, hey, I really hope that you love me right now. It's actually a form of, hey, I really hope you don't leave me right now. I really hope I'm not going to be abandoned. And for the anxiously attached system, for those that have it, like I have in my past, it's actually a really helpful distinction to understand if I'm reaching for love or if I'm reaching for safety. That can help us better understand what our need is in that moment. So if you're a person who resonates with this, if you notice that you're like this, you tend to behave this way. When you withdraw, you're not actually looking to separate. The first thing that we, as the anxious attachment system, need to start doing is better recognizing what our need is in the first place. Because this surface level behavior is simply just the way we have known how to meet that need, because we tend to get the response that we're looking for from it. And so we need to get more in tune with our system and our body to understand that maybe right now we actually just need a hug. Maybe right now we just need eye contact. Right now we just need a quick kiss. Right now we need a little chat. right? Or we just need our partner to know that we're feeling unsafe. Not that they have done anything wrong, but that we're feeling agitated or unsafe and we're hoping to feel closer either now or maybe this evening during date night. They're looking for connection, they're looking for closeness. Now, maybe this isn't distinguishable enough for you. Maybe you say, well, I do actually want distance in that moment. So we'll get to that piece in a second. But an anxiously attached system, if they don't get the need met from withdrawing, then it will turn into more hostile behavior or more volatile behavior in order to demand the closeness and connection. So this can start to look like excessive communication. So if they have withdrawn and you haven't reached out, they may actually start to excessively try to contact you, or they might completely let go. But what that person won't ever generally stop doing is not communicate or leave the relationship. It might seem that way over time, depending on how extreme or intense the experience is for them and their body. But the volatile behavior is still an attempt to get their need met because the simplicity of withdrawing didn't work. So they may actually withdraw further and go even quieter in an effort to punish or guilt you into thinking that something is wrong and that there's more effort you need to be doing. Now, obviously, the more intense this experience is for somebody, the more intense their reactions will be, the more intense their behaviors will be. And so that can be a really difficult position to be in. And all we're talking about here today is to just simply recognize and witness what is it that my partner is looking for here. And to also better understand, is there something I'm doing that's contributing to this lack of safety for my partner? Right? Because when they withdraw, they don't feel safe. And so, because they don't feel safe, it's not necessarily me to blame, but it is important for us to understand that I'm with this person and therefore I contribute to the safety of this environment. And I also contribute to the healing of my partner. I'm responsible for their well being as well. And so, when we can connect this dot, that's the premise of this whole podcast episode, is to connect those two dots so that we're not shaming, rejecting, or blaming our partner for having this visceral experience that is likely something a lot deeper, that's historical, that is something that was created during their upbringing. Now, let's shift it to the avoidant side because we talked about the anxious system, and avoidant is also a behavioral connection to withdrawing. So an avoidant will withdraw, but not to create closeness. An avoidant actually does want distance. They do want space. Their system is activated in a similar way, and they don't know what to do with it. And so they have built the system of not ever having needs and rejecting any needs they might have. So they shut those down, which tends to shut their system down. So a withdrawal from an avoidant can look like stonewalling. They will not actually acknowledge when you come close. If you do come close, they may push harder. And in a lot of scenarios, the more closer you come, the more likely that they may actually just leave the relationship altogether. And this will be confusing because in most scenarios, they don't actually want to be alone. So they might find somebody else pretty quickly because it's not that they are looking to be alone forever. They crave closeness and intimacy just as much as an anxious. The difference is that they've been taught that that's not okay, that that's a bad thing. And so their belief is, I shouldn't have this experience. I don't know what to do with this intimacy. I've always rejected it and it's always been rejected. So I'm going to fully withdraw and separate myself from this. And so this is an important distinction, and this will help, or the hope is that this will help you as the listener separate the difference between the anxious and the avoidant, but also, again, to recognize that these are historical patterns and these are historical behaviors driven from a lack of safety. And so they just respond differently. But if we can get back to the deeper reasoning, then we can actually support our partner. We can actually support the process. And so how we do so is by providing a safe space for them in these moments, right? When somebody withdraws, we start to just question and get curious rather than making it about us, rather than taking it personally, right? We lead with high self-esteem, meaning we know we're not perfect, but we also hold ourselves with high regard. And so we don't say, well, they just must not love me or they hate me or they're going to leave me, because a lot of the times they withdraw not because of us, but because of a reaction to the system. and because of a potential what's called hijacking of their system because they don't feel safe. So, what does it look like for us in relationship to start thinking about the we, thinking about the us, and supporting each other in making a transition out of this behavior of withdrawal and into clearly communicated needs and desires? Now, the hope with this conversation is that you are able to connect to that need by recognizing that your withdrawal or your withdrawing behavior is a request for something. So instead of just letting the behavior run wild, we can then communicate what it is that we're looking for. And what's going to help this is by getting clear together with what I call foundational agreements on what's being requested and what it means. So, what I mean by that is an avoidant who does withdraw, the exchanging behavior is to communicate, hey, I need some space right now, but I'll be back. Just give me like 10 minutes. I'm just going to do my thing for 10 minutes. And then I'd love to connect or cook dinner with you. That small distinction of communicating a need is the first step. The difficulty is that if this hasn't been honored previously, that might ignite anxiousness in the other person. And so this foundational agreement is a conversation outside of conflict. And it says, we both agree that we have needs. We both agree that our needs are safe here and welcomed here. And we both agree that we are going to honor each other's needs as best as we can. In that conversation, we start to create clarity. Hey, I just want you to know when I withdraw and when I ask for space more clearly, I'm not saying you've done something wrong. And I'm not saying that you need to be different or that I don't like this relationship. I want you to know that when I ask for space, what I'm looking for is to just be quiet, just to settle down. I am feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling stressed. And I notice that I can't give anything in this moment. And so when I need space, it's so that I can be a better version of myself. Right? And that changes the conversation from this is about you to I'm taking ownership for my behavior and what I need to do to shift myself. And the person who is responding to this gets to better understand and doesn't take it personally and can then witness and open up a safe space for this person to take space. And that is actually incredibly healing for that person because now all of a sudden who they are and what they need is being accepted, is being positively acknowledged. And for the anxious person, they get to share, hey, listen, I'm just noticing I'm a little anxious right now. I think I just need a hug. And what the person that is listening to this, the partner receiving this information, what they get to understand is that they are feeling unsafe here. They're feeling scared here. So if I'm responding to somebody who is scared and feeling unsafe, well, I don't usually attack them or reject them. I actually usually provide empathy and closeness and connection. And I hold them in that. And all of these experiences, once we start to create some foundational agreements that we're both going to do this, and we get into some practice with it as often as we can, it actually starts to make these moments quite small, quite minimal. Right? Instead of turning into a drawn out argument or drawn out, unsafe, anxious, and avoidant experience, it actually just becomes 5 to 10 minutes. For a hug, it might even just be 60 seconds. And then everything that could, or maybe usually is a big experience, is already over. And this is, again, the power of just simply understanding a little deeper with a little bit more clarity around what's alive for us in the behaviors that we have and in the behaviors we're witnessing so that we can start to become more relational and just get on the same page. Right? Ultimately, this is a step towards secure attachment together. And the more secure we become, the stronger we feel as a relationship, the more likely we are to take bigger steps or next steps. And the stronger this relationship becomes as our safe haven or our home base, which actually creates more freedom for us to explore our personal selves outside of the world. Withdrawing is not a one size fits all. It doesn't mean one thing and only the other. There's a lot of different needs underneath withdrawal. So the conversation here is to simply guide us into that understanding so that we don't judge reject, or abandon our partner physically or emotionally or psychologically or otherwise, because that will only activate that system further for them. So if we know deep down we're responsible for their well-being, we're responsible for helping them heal, then we get a chance to actually be that person for them so that they can go through that space knowing they're held, knowing they're witnessed, and that nobody is going to leave them or abandon them or judge them for having their needs. And withdrawal is clearly a really big stepping stone to getting there. So I'll leave that there. I hope this sparked something in you in regards to an awareness, maybe about withdrawal, or maybe even about another behavior that you may exude or express that you aren't fond of, or it just isn't productive to what it is that you want to create with your partner. I encourage you to separate yourself from good or bad as language, or healthy or unhealthy. A lot of that can be induced with shame. And so I always encourage the language of productive or unproductive, or effective or ineffective. And that requires you to know what it's productive towards. Like, what's the vision, right? It's effective towards what? Well, connection and security. Cool, great. Now I know like what I'm looking for more clearly. And that way I can start to shift the way I behave in an effort to be more productive to the goal that I want. Thank you so much for listening. Looking forward to seeing you in the further episode. If you want to take this work even deeper, please reach out to me specifically at atlasmecca@gmail.com, or just book a discovery call through my socials at the relationship coach _. Together, we're going to work through the 1 hour free coaching session where we just really dive deeper and provide more clarity on what you're looking for, where your blind spots might be, where you need to take some ownership and accountability for where you are and how you can change that, and then what strategies and systems can we put in place immediately to start creating change. Reach out to me directly. I'd love to be a part of your journey. For now, looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Have a great day.